Iranian-backed plot to assassinate former Canadian Justice Minister Irwin
The
Cotler.
RCMP told Cotler last month of an Iranian...
When news broke that Canada's former Justice Minister was the target of an assassination plot by Iran,
I was under imminent and lethal threat.
Irwin Cotler made it clear he's not alone and he's worried.
The targeting of dissidents and journalists and human rights defenders.
He's worried about people who came here to be safe, only to be suddenly stalked by the repressive regimes they left behind.
Do you think now that you're safe in Canada?
I feel sometimes when, a car behind us, I feel I'm not safe.
It feels like everything we do are being watched.
Turns out the worry is building.
How can we coordinate between like-minded countries to deal with this?
A parliamentary committee on the terrifyingly real phenomenon known as transnational repression has been hearing tales of people feeling increasingly threatened and powerless to do anything about it.
If you could help us define transnational repression.
Just as curious about how to handle this, it seems, the Canadian government.
What more can be done to ensure the safety of women political activists and human rights defenders?
The subcommittee will meet again in the new year, but it's already clear intimidation is increasing in Canada and women are a particular target.
I receive lots of threats. I'm very scared.
This woman certainly is.
What kind of threats?
They will kill me. They will kill my daughter.
They knew you had a daughter.
Azi Jangravi, in Canada now after taking an enormous risk in Iran. The girls, plural, of Revolution Street are all over social media. Back in 2018, we did a story about the women known as the Girls of Revolution Street.
4 girls did this.
Were you one of the 4?
Yeah, I was the third.
Single displays of defiance. Young Iranian women who stood on utility boxes and boldly took off their hijabs. Precisely what Azi Jangravi did.
This is you.
Yeah, this is me.
One by one, the women were arrested, their families pushed to say publicly they were mentally unwell. Jangravi's family refused, and at the first opportunity, she fled the country, eventually coming to Canada. She's got a good job, a daughter, a home, and now total terror, with the realization that those angry with her for defying the Iranian regime are coming after her here. Sometimes posting thousands of menacing comments on her social media accounts, letting her know they know who she is and where her family are.
I have lots of camera in my house. The police, they told me I have to say everything to my daughter's school, and I have to talk with my neighbors about my situation. It's very hard. You always be alone. You can't trust people. For example, the police of here told me, please don't hang out with Iranian people because of your safety.
Don't hang out with other Iranian people.
The loneliness of this a real pattern for those who've already been through so much. And it's not just a reality for women from Iran.
It feels like everything we do are being watched, and they kind of knit a net around us, and we're all in it, but there's no way we can get out from it.
This is a woman who asked us to call her Ching. She's also in Canada, also living in terror. The threat to her is so acute, we have to hide her identity. It's been a long time since she lived in China, but immediately after attending a rally in Canada protesting China's human rights record, China made itself known to her.
It was a few hours after the rally took place, and I got a message from my family member. They tell me that someone has quote-unquote visited or contacted them. I was really shocked to know that they acted so fast and they have precisely identified who I am. I was really paranoid for a few months. I started to untrust essentially people who speak the same language as me. Like, we're on the other side of the world, but they still have ways to watch us.
2 dissidents among many now isolated and afraid. For those studying the threats from foreign actors on people supposedly safe in Canada, this is all sickening.
You can see where this leads. You start looking over your shoulder. You're afraid of diaspora networks that normally you should be comfortable and welcome because you're new to this country and you retreat. That is actually the most effective technique for an authoritarian abroad. Silence the opposition, make them afraid to use social media, and it's working.
So this is a Chinese Australian activist who was subjected to attacks.
It appears like a news broadcast, but it's just fake.
Ron Diebert and his team at the Citizen Lab have been tracking these experiences, say with women in particular, threats become sexualized. Families back home are frequent targets, both effective ways to get someone to stop talking.
Showing her consuming drugs or selling her body.
Planting the seeds of disinformation and doubt about the integrity of a dissident is getting incredibly dangerous.
This is like the classic narrative, you know.
Even Diebert's colleague, Noura al-Jazawi, knows the horror of that. She's a Syrian, once imprisoned by Bashar al-Assad's regime for standing against it. She fled to Canada, and she's been safe for a while, until out of the blue, not long ago, her immigration status was questioned.
I was invited to quote-unquote interview because there were some questions, security questions about me. I was invited to this interview. The location was the biggest prison for deportation.
Being asked to come to the facility that Noura mentioned was actually right next to Pearson Airport, which meant that it was possible she would have this interview and then be immediately deported.
And they said, bring your passport.
Bring your passport.
Deportation would have meant a death sentence for a political activist like her.
We were very frightened by
They wonder who was behind the attempt to portray her as a threat to Canada. Suspect either agents for Syria or its ally, Iran.
I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about. There needs to be better awareness among government officials of this risk.
Ottawa is listening, learning about this issue. Noura al-Jazawi, part of a team testifying at the hearings.
We need Canada to hold perpetrators accountable.
We start to question.
And saying at least hopes the message is sinking in.
Western democratic societies did not really offer activists the protection that they deserve as the whistleblowers.
The Foreign Interference Committee is set to release its final report in the new year on how to protect Canadian institutions from foreign governments intent on pushing their agendas. But when it comes to individuals being targeted, there's so much more to do, and so many people retreating into the shadows in the very place they thought they were safe.